Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. For those of you worried about my cough, I'm getting a little bit of an endoscopy next week, so we'll get some answers there. I appreciate the concern. I think it's misplaced. I think I'm doing just fine, but, better safe than sorry. We got a question here from YouTube user MKB3333, who asks us, "Hey Vince, this would be a good time to ask." It's always a good time to ask, MKB. Is it remotely a good idea to ask in my demand letter for a public apology and a lack of NDA? And counsel fees, of course. In lieu of settlement, as I'm starting to realize I don't care about monetary damages as much as the ability to not be silenced. I understand it is a personal decision, but I see more value and vindication in that scenario vis-a-vis anything else. Apropos forgiveness, I share your sentiments that it doesn't work in a practical sense, especially when the damages are pervasive. Hence my dilemma. Hurt them back where it's going to hurt, or settle on my own terms. No silencing the victim being the main objective. A complex question, I know, but your input would be appreciated. Part of your question is not complex. The idea that you would say in your demand letter that you're not going to agree to NDA language or non-disparagement language is not a bad idea if you really feel that way. Now, real quick, let's touch on the idea. You said here you don't care about monetary damages. Lots of people say that. A lot of those people will later try to sue their attorney, who got them a settlement that did not have much in the way of monetary damages. Why does that happen? Because we live in a capitalist country and life is hard, and a lot of times the money you get from a case like this gives you time and runway to heal, lets you seek better treatment, lets you take care of your family, lets you mend some fences, build your career, invest in yourself. There's a lot of things that money can do. So when somebody comes in my office, and I'm not saying this is you, MKB, because you seem very sincere, but when somebody comes to my office and says, "I will not be silenced," I believe them. When somebody comes in my office and says, "Monetary damages don't really matter to me," well, I've got a bit of data on that. Out of all the people who say that to me, and we're probably talking 30 a year of our 450 clients a year that we accept. Of the 30 a year who say that they don't care about the money, about 10, so about a third of those 30 per year mean it. And then after the case settles, and the settlement does not prioritize monetary damages, friends and family mock them, berate them, spouses give them a hard time. You know, it can be hard. What do you mean you didn't get any money? What do you mean you did this? You're a fool, MKB, not you, not MKB. You're a fool, CQB, whoever. And then you get the call. "Hey, Vince, I need to reopen that case." What did you say? The case that you settled? For the heavily negotiated settlement agreement that we represented you in which we got you everything you asked for? Yeah, I need you to reopen it. I need you to get me out of that settlement. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Like, what's the grounds? Were you like heavily, did they hit you with a tranq dart? Were they poisoning your water? Were you under physical threat of violence when you settled that case? Like, what are we, they were slipping horse tranquilizers into your panini at lunch during the mediation? Like, what are we talking about here? And I'm not trying to be, I guess I'm trying to be funny, but like realistically, those are the level of allegations that might be required to reopen a heavily negotiated settlement agreement once it's done, right? Like physical duress, physical threats of harm, being drugged, but like not having an opportunity to know that you're being drugged, or like an opportunity to disclose that you've been drugged, right? Like that's one of the things often at mediations they'll start be like, hey, we just want to make sure everybody, nobody's on any medication, which makes it inadvisable to make decisions here, right? Very common. You know why? Lots of people settle their case and they come back and say, hey, I was very high that day. I shouldn't be stuck with a settlement. I know that you gave me 200,000. I know you gave me 200,000, and I know that I spent the 200,000. But really, that's on you because I was high as a kite. So let's reopen that case. Well, we asked you. We asked you if you were on any drugs, and you said no. In fact, you signed a piece of paper saying you were not. So everyone relied on you. It's not really on us. You're kind of the asshole here. Like you're not the person who did the bad thing that got us all here, but we can't run around with the mop and bucket picking up after you while you like stumble through life because you can't tell us you're on medication, right? And listen, I've heard it all. I was embarrassed. Okay. Well, you were so embarrassed you made a decision. You didn't tell me. You're high as a kite. I also don't believe you're high as a kite. I think you're full of shit. But it happens, right? These things come up. Like I don't know. At the point where we're dickering about percentage, quarter percentage points on your incentive pay, I suspect you were not high as a kite. I suspect you were a savvy thinking individual who now wants out of that agreement for some reason. And you might just be saying you were under heavy medication, right? But I digress. That's just my thought, MKB, about folks who tell me that they don't care about the monetary damages. Now, there's definitely people who mean it. There's definitely people who mean it to the very end. But the number of those people who survive the settlement process, right, who get to the very end fully believing and espousing the ideal that they don't care about the monetary damages, and then a year later still don't care about the monetary damages, slim. Very slim pickings. Very few people. It's just not. You got a family? Does your family have everything you want them to have? I bet they don't. Unless you're a 1%er, I bet they don't. So, and I certainly know people who feel they have nothing left to buy. I sometimes feel I have nothing left to want, right? But odds are, if you're working a job, you're working it because you want money, not because it was so gosh darn fulfilling for you. So you probably do want money for this case because this case impacted your livelihood. You lost money as a result, right? The discrimination, the sexual harassment, it impacted your economic ability to care for yourself and those you love, and that's why we want money. It's not gross to want money. It's not noble to not want money. You can not want money if you don't want it. You can not want money if you want to not want money. That's your prerogative. You're the leader here. But one, I don't think it's noble to not want money. If someone robs you, you want the return of that property if it can be achieved, right? Is it noble to get robbed and say, you know what? Keep my car. No, not especially. Unless you were robbed by a starving orphan, a la like Disney's Aladdin or something, I don't think it's noble. And I don't think it's noble here to let a bad actor off the hook without paying some form of economic restitution and for the emotional damages and maybe the punitive damages as well. So this topic of the disdain for economic damages, the disdain for the monetary award, I get where you're coming from, MKB. I just look at it differently, and I can also tell you're sincere, right? These comments, this broad spectrum skepticism that I'm throwing into the world, not directed at you. I can feel in your words the sincerity. So we've dealt with a couple things here. There's one part left. We've dealt with the idea that you would not agree to an NDA. Your story, the story of victims, has more ability to change society than our cases. So I get why you're doing that. That is very noble. And you understand, it seems to me, you understand that if you're not agreeing to an NDA, you will receive less in settlement, because what they really want, what the employer really wants, is to purchase your silence. And they'll pay a premium for that. So you are doing something noble there by saying, hey, I'm not going to agree to be silenced. That is noble. That is you putting the good of society through the vehicle of you sharing your story ahead of your monetary well-being. That is noble. In a way that I don't feel saying, hey, I don't really care about the monetary damages. I don't think that's that noble, but I think you sharing your story ahead of the monetary damages is noble. Now, we have one more piece to this. First part of your question. Is it remotely a good idea to ask my demand letter for a public apology? It is not, and I'll explain why. Most defense attorneys, most employers, will feel that a public apology will invite more litigation. So they would rather fight a case to the very end and lose, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting the case, and then lose a verdict of hundreds, if not millions of dollars, than they would to apologize. Because the logic on the defense side is as follows. If you apologize, you look weak, you will get more claims against you. If you fight to the bitter end and make the plaintiff's counsel expend tens, if not hundreds of thousands in resources and attorney hours, many other law firms will then not take cases against you. The settlement artists of the world, the case flippers of the world, will become less willing to take claims against that employer because they'll say things like, oh, they always litigate, right? UPS, Big Brown itself, used to, I don't think they do anymore. At least they don't seem to with respect to our firm, in my experience. But they used to have a long-standing policy. They would never settle cases. Never settle. And you'd be like, listen, this is crazy. Why are you doing this? And they would just tell you, yeah, so we figured it out. We did the math. Big Brown, UPS, famously did the math on left turns and just decided, hey, if we don't let our trucks make any left turns, in aggregate, we end up ahead. So no more left turns, right? That was the thing that went on. They crunched the numbers on that. It appears they also crunched the numbers, and they said if we fight every case to the bitter end, if we fight every case to the bitter end, yeah, we're going to give up some massive verdicts. Massive verdicts. Big, because they're not perfect. It's a big company, right? They clearly engage in discrimination. They do have a very diverse workforce, but some of their employees, bad people. Just like any other big company, right? Humans are human. I'm not even really deriding UPS on this. Just every company. Got some bad people in it, right? But if they fight every single case to the bitter end, fewer and fewer firms over time will take the cases against them. Now, we never stopped. I like getting my trial team out in the trenches. I like them earning their keep for once, right? Settlements are great, fine, well, and good. But, trial teams, super expensive. And the settlement rate can be so high in this field that you don't get to use them as often as you would like, right? You expend these huge amounts of resources to put together the trial team that you want. The Teamo Supremo, the dream team, right? And then you put them together. You make them wealthy, paying them every 2 weeks, and then everything just settles, month after month after month. So I got to tell you, I start to think of UPS as I get my money's worth. I'm gonna get a trial on this one. Hey, trial team, get out there, stay sharp, put in the reps, finally earn your keep, right? And listen, trial teams stay busy when they're not on trial, but they're expensive because they're a trial team. More expensive than other attorneys, I'll tell you that. And so firms like our firm, and listen, we're not the only ones. I can think of a variety of others. I've had a few on the channel that are very comfortable going forward, right? The Marjorie Mesidors, right? The Wigdors, right? There's plenty of firms comfortable going forward. If I'm not naming someone, it's not because I think they're not willing to go forward. It's just these are the names that spring to mind on the East Coast as the people who will absolutely go forward. Absolutely go forward. And I would say our firm as well. Now, there came a time when UPS started settling cases again. I don't know if they did across the board, but they started settling cases with us again. And I think at some point, maybe somebody made a note in a file like they're actually suing us specifically because we're not settling. They want the verdicts. The verdicts can be larger than the settlements, right? Like you don't have to hedge for risk in an award, a verdict, the way you do in a settlement, right? The settlement, you got to look at the risk and be like, okay, that could happen. Smart money takes this settlement. Fair enough. Okay. And that is smart money. It's a smart way to approach it. Hedging for risk. But if they take the option away, the settlement option away, I don't have to worry. I don't have to think about hedging risk. There is no risk. It's either you win or you lose. And sure, you could lose, but there was no other option. Settlement was never an option. Peace was never an option, right? And this is a really long way to say. We'll bring it back to your point. If they give the apology, they firmly believe. They really, really do. And by they, I mean almost all the employers, almost all the defense attorneys. If they give a public apology, they will be inviting more litigation. And if they fight the case, or if they settle it quietly, they will be dissuading new litigations. That is what they believe, and that is why they will never give you that public apology. Worse, that public apology, you could get politicians piling on. They could name something the whatever the company's name is, right? The UPS Act, just hypothetically, and have it deal with some kind of discrimination. That's terrible. That's terrible. How's the company going to fix that? Well, they got to lobby. Lobbying's expensive. They got to go give money to the politician who's naming a law about them, right? They don't want to do that. So they don't want to apologize. And they will almost never, less than 5 times in my entire career, will they ever do that. Now, something else to know here. If you're trying to hire an attorney and you're saying things like, hey, I want a public apology, that attorney just thinks in their mind, well, that's not going to happen. So this person's already a problem for me because I can't achieve what they want. And then you go on and say, and I don't care about the monetary damages. Cool. So you are a problem. You have a claim. You got a claim. No question. You got a claim. Claim we could win. We could settle. Claim's worth money to us. But you want a public apology that we can't produce. And you don't care about money. So you're going to prioritize a bunch of settlement terms that I can't eat. I can't take a percentage of, right? Like you sharing your story, I support that. I think that's amazing. And to me, I think that's a noble pursuit. that our firm should prioritize. But if you're thinking just dollars and cents, if you're taking a 6-figure haircut on the valuation of your case because you don't want to sign an NDA, guess what? Your prospective attorneys are just seeing tens of thousands of dollars walk out the door on their contingent percentage, right? Their percentage of what they get from winning you the case for you or settling the case for you. And they're not going to be excited about that. So if you're trying to find counsel and you're saying, I want a public apology and I don't care about the monetary award, it's going to make it difficult, often, to obtain representation because you're really saying, I'm a problem. I don't understand why that's not going to happen. Not your fault, MKB. We're explaining it now in terms of the apology, but also I don't care about money, so I don't care if my attorney gets paid, even after my attorney invests tens of thousands, if not more, and hundreds of attorney hours in this case. Tempting offer for the law firm, right? So MKB, I can read your nobility in the words. And you're doing everything right. You're asking the question, you're having the conversation, you want to share the story. I applaud you. Also, you communicate in a compelling enough fashion that I feel like you could get away with this. Where you're like, I want the public apology. I don't care about the money, and I think you'd probably still find representation. I do. It's rare. Most of the people saying, I want a public apology, I don't care about money, let's just get them off the phone as fast as you can. That's what a lot of the firms are doing. They're not going to have a conversation with you. Well, they're not going to have a public apology because you know, this and that. And if you don't care about the money, that makes it hard for us. Because if they say those things to a potential client, they might just get a nasty review. They might get somebody throwing a rock through the window of their office. It happens. They might get screamed at, spit on. All kinds of things happen. I'm not in any way exaggerating with any of these things. These are all things that I can think of happening, situations where firms were too frank about why they didn't take a case. And MKB, again, not something you would engage in, but you're one of thousands of potential clients a firm might speak to. Tens of thousands over the course of a year. And many of those folks they might not have your measured response. They might not have your nobility. They might not think about things the way it's clear that you think about things. And you're going to get lumped in with them. So it's a significant issue. Anyways, this is going super long. We're at like 23 minutes here. I hope this answers your question, MKB. I feel like there's a little negative, but I got to stress, I applaud you for sharing your story first. I applaud you for that, without question. And listen, I also believe you when you say the monetary isn't your priority. I do. I believe you. I'm just a little bit jaded because I've had so many experiences with so many people who said that. And then come back to me and like, why didn't you get me more money? Because you told me not to. You said you wanted X, Y, and Z. You wanted X, Y, and Z and not money. So we negotiated for X, Y, and Z instead of, cash value. And that's what you wanted. That was your directive. And we did as you commanded us. We have broad discretion on how to effectuate your goals, but you choose your goals. You can choose the tactics, but you can choose the strategy. You tell us our goal. We choose the tactics because, frankly, you don't know anything about the tactics, right? I can't tell you. Yeah, I know you don't want. I know you say you don't want money, but I'm going to get you money. Unethical. Unethical. I can try to convince you briefly, but I can't pressure you. And I would, in fact, mock and deride firms that would pressure their clients. But often, the people who say they don't want money, they come back later, angry, crying. Why didn't you get me money? Because you said you didn't want it. You said this is what you wanted. We went back and forth 10 times, 11 times, 15 times, 30 times negotiating. This is what you said you wanted. This was your directive. We effectuated your command. We don't tell you what to want. Just not the job. We work for you. But a lot of those folks who negotiate away from the money later regret it. A lot of them. If this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. Share the channel so it can grow. Take care, everybody.